Hi everyone, welcome to the anime soiree. My name is Griffin. You guys can introduce yourselves.
Are we going around?
All right.
Okay. My name is Kyle.
Abbas.
I'm Will.
Today we're going to talk about Vinland Saga. It started as a manga. I'm not sure what year, but I think it was the late
2005.
2005, and it was adapted to an anime this last year. And it's a coming of age story about, I believe, like 11th century Vikings. And yeah, it follows a guy named Thors and his journey from like his Viking nomadic tribe to England, I believe. And it kind of starts with him and his like peaceful life, and he kind of has like an aloof father, and then kind of what happens from there is they just get picked up, kind of like a call to adventure type deal, basically threatened by the army that the main character's father was associated with many years ago, and then they basically get pulled into England, and then along the way, the father or Thor's dies, and the son Thorfinn basically like is being mentored but slash hates the guy that killed his father because he basically recruits him into his army. And one thing I really liked about the show was just like the dynamic between like Askeladd, which is that fellow who owns that army that Thorfinn is a part of, and Thor's, because Thorfinn, I mean Thor's. Sorry, this is gonna get confusing going back between Thor's and Thorfinn. Thorfinn really wants to murder Askeladd, but he's like kind of like a pseudo dad, and like every waking moment of Thorfinn's life is like enraged. And I honestly kind of hate Thorfinn because he's really annoying and he's always angry. And Askeladd is like low key mentoring him and low key trying to help him. And it's a very like interesting dynamic for an anime. And I thought it was really appealing, but I honestly like I can't wait for Thorfinn to like develop past his angry stage. Now that we know that like Askeladd dies because he doesn't have a mentor anymore, so I can't wait to like him finally. So that was like the one thing that I thought was like, yeah, I can't wait for that to happen.
Okay, yeah. Am I good now?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
fine.
Good words. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I actually really like Thorfinn as a character. He's probably like, I mean, I've also read the manga. I haven't been. I mean, the manga's still going on, but I'm like not caught up on the manga. But I've read past where we are now. Um, so I have a little bit more perspective on his character. But I mean, this is like the show portion of Thorfinn, like, is basically like his like baby stage of development. Like, this is like basically just like the entire like first season of the anime is basically like it's presented as kind of like the prologue to like the larger story of Vinland Saga. But even still, like even just from like this portion of um like the series, I really like Thorfinn as a character. I mean, for one, like I think he's like an interesting character because he's such a tragic character. Considering the fact that his dad like clearly did not want Thorfinn to live this kind of life. His dad, like his literal like dying words were like, "You have no enemies. Like a warrior doesn't need a sword." And Thorfinn is basically just like at this point completely ignoring like everything that his father wanted him to do and seeking revenge for his father's death, which like makes him a tragic character. But then also like just like Thorfinn is a badass. Like he like the reason like that he is able to like fight Askeladd so much is because like he does these like crazy feats like on the battlefield. Like he basically is a Viking ninja, and like Thorfinn has like the biggest balls of all time because like he'll like literally go up against like Thorkel, who is like this freak giant of a man who's like 10 feet tall. Um, and like he's just like no sweat about it. Like he'll just like he'll fight people like that. He doesn't give a fuck. Like he's just trying to like avenge his dad, and he'll do like literally whatever it takes to do it. And I respect it.
Yeah. I mean I agree with Kyle. Like to corroborate, it's like you notice at several different points throughout the anime that the most important thing for Thorfinn was his dad. And like he really didn't give a shit about a lot of other things other than like respecting his dad and like looking up to his dad. You start seeing that closer to like like about when his dad is going to die, and then you really get a good idea of it, and it finally gets cemented when Leaf finally finds Thorsvin. Leaf being like the dude that was accompanying Thor's on the journey. He finally finds him and he's like, "Come home with me, like give this up. Like, don't you want to see your mom and your sister?" And he's like, "Nah, bro. Like, I have one mission, and it's to get revenge for my dad. Like, I like don't care about like what's going on in the world outside of like me and Askham." And you like you see him do all these epic battles, and you see him like put up all these epic fights, and even when like Askeladd is like kind of like dying, he like mentions like this isn't fair, like this was supposed to be my battle, like I was supposed to be the one to like take you down. Don't die, stop dying. The guy's literally on his like final words, and
Stop
Thorfinn's like,
time, bro, please.
yeah, he's like, get up. I'm gonna be the one to fight you. So I mean, I like really respect that he's so driven, right? Like he respects his dad so much and looks up to him so much that he's so driven. He loses sight of that respect when he chooses to ignore his dad's message of like have no enemies and don't fight. Um, but that's like the journey that, like he's kind of like following his dad's own journey. Like it's not like his dad like from day one was like, "Don't fight. I don't like fighting. There's the pen is better than the sword." Like his dad like was a part of the Yom Vikings and like assassinated a bunch of people, and then at one point like when he had his child, he was like, "Oh, like maybe I shouldn't be fighting. Like there's better ways to live my life than fighting people."
Yeah, I think like I kind of agree with Griffin. Like I think I found myself not liking Torfin a lot. Like I thought he was like a brat, but also I understood exactly why he was a brat. Because like he had such a rough span of years where he's like a really little kid and he's a happy go lucky, like he wants to be a great warrior just like his father, and he sees his father die in a very brutal way, very dishonest way. Basically, I don't know. He's not really a prisoner, but also he kind of is a prisoner. Kind of makes himself a prisoner by hanging around Askeladd all the time, and he gets brought up in this very brutal, violent world, and kind of raises himself while Askeladd raises him, giving him tasks and missions and different things to do. But the way that he lives in the fact that he lives in such a violent world and that's his day to day kind of makes you understand why he's always angry and why he's such a brat, and so why he like only lives to duel Askeladd and kill his, or eventually end up trying to kill Askeladd through a duel. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I just think it was very understandable why he was such an angry and kind of dislikable character.
Yeah, and I see that. Like he definitely had like a lot of skill, right? Like he was a really cool like character, like design, and like like you said, Kyle, he's like a Viking ninja, which is like pretty cool, pretty badass, and all the fights he was in, it like he's always doing cool shit, and he's always like willing to try and willing to take on anyone. Like he fought Askeladd like I don't know how many times during the show, and then like fighting Thorkel as well. It was always cool, and he was always a badass for sure. But it's just like from like a personality and like when he's not fighting, type analysis, I guess. It's just really annoying. He's just like a brooding, edgy, always really entitled. Like he's somehow entitled to killing Askeladd when you're not even close to his level. And I don't know. I feel like that just kind of like he's very simple in that way. He's like, I'm here to kill a dude. I can't do it, so I have some like disgusting complex, and it just makes me into every time I'm on screen, I just have this giant sense of entitlement. And just from a viewer perspective, I understand the sense of entitlement. I understand the edginess and the anger, but I don't really like seeing like the main character, I don't know, not really like, follow like, what his father laid out for him or like any of the advice Askeladd's giving him. And it just seemed like he was just so blinded by like killing him. That's why I'm excited for the rest of the show, because I'm like, okay, finally it's over with. Askeladd's finally dead. He's gonna have like some kind of like system shock where that his life's goal up until this point he failed, and he's gonna have no mentors, no one to look up to. I mean, he's like Canute and all that stuff as well, and he seems to be a lot more headstrong. So maybe that'll be a resource for him. But he has to find a new purpose because he can't fulfill this one anymore, and I'm excited to see how that develops his character because up until this point, I found his character frustrating to watch on screen interact with other people and watching him make decisions and stuff like that.
That's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of think that you guys like, or maybe I don't know. I think that you guys are underselling like. I think that Thorfinn has a lot of like he is definitely like a character at this point that is like defined by his like rage. Um, but he also has like quieter moments as well. Like the the scene where he like kind of like he has to like go ahead of the group and kind of like scout out like a town. And he kind of gets like fucked over by some grunts. He like washes up in the river, and then this family like picks him up and like kind of like takes care of him and like nurses his injuries and stuff. And he's like conflicted about like he feels guilty of the fact that like his purpose like was to scout out this village and like like make sure that everything was good for like the raid, right? And so like he knows that like these people like their home is like about to be destroyed. He knows that like if they don't get the fuck out of there, they're going to be raped by the Vikings. And so like he's just like but he has to deal with that because like his like what is he gonna do? Just fucking like run away and like give up on his goal, or like just like live quiet life? Like he just like he has to like deal with that conflict, and that those kind of moments where he's like he is conflicted over that is like where he's kind of like starting to see like okay like you know plant like getting the seeds that like Thor's had like kind of planted in him about like being peaceful and like no one is his enemy and not needing a sword. Like they're like kind of like starting to grow, um and I like those moments. Like he has a similar moment with one of the slaves at Askeladd's home village, where he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Like, why don't you just like run away?" And she's like, "Oh, like I don't have anywhere to go." And it's kind of like Thorfinn is in like the same situation. Like he doesn't have anywhere to go. Like he doesn't have anywhere left. Like he doesn't feel like he can go home because he lost his father. So I think that like the like I agree that like he is like defined by his anger, but I wouldn't describe him as like an overly edgy character because I do think that like those quiet moments kind of humanize him and like make it so that it's not like a complete 180 once Askeladd dies and like his character inevitably changes. So I don't know.
Yeah. Also from just like a pure pragmatic point of view, like there are two outcomes, right? The first is that after his father dies, he goes home, the show ends, right? Like he's living a peaceful life, like he doesn't give a shit anymore. The second perspective is like he kills Askeladd, right, during the first season, and he kills Askeladd and he fulfills his mission. That's it. Like the show ends. Like I think the show needed to have him be that angry and like a brat kind of character to like prolong the show for like like from a pragmatic perspective. If he had just like achieved his goals like in that first season at some point, like I think there would be a lot less plot to continue developing for the writers of that show.
I'm
Yeah, and
actually
also
think
it wouldn't have made
I
any
would
sense thematically.
I would
I'm
disagree with
actually
that, boss, for sure. Like, I don't think that those are the only two ways they could have gone about it. There are like actually like limitless ways that they could have like had Thorfinn like pursue Askeladd like in England or whatever. He didn't have to become his
Yeah,
disciple, and he didn't have to like wake up every day to like be mentored by the person he wanted to kill. There was a ton of ways they could have done it.
I mean, he's not like getting mentored by Askeladd. Like from
Basically,
from the
is.
viewer's perspective, yeah, from the viewer's perspective, we think he is, but he says it himself multiple times. I am not like in your army. I am not learning from you. I do not like align with you. Like my only purpose right now is to like achieve these certain goals that you set in the battlefield, so you can guarantee me like an honorable battle. There's like a specific scene like earlier like in the show where he walks up to Askeladd asleep, or like Askeladd pretending to sleep, right? And he's like holding the sword in his hand. Could have just wiped out Askeladd at that moment, but he chose not to, right? Like like you still see that nuance within the character even through his hatred, because he's he's still appreciating to defeat somebody in an honorable way, right? And like killing somebody in their sleep would not be honorable. Um, and so you see this complexity develop through the hatred, and honestly, it makes him a better character at the end of it compared to like one of those other two perspectives I said earlier, where he just achieves it way early on down the road, or he totally ignores it.
I still don't completely understand what you're saying, but like I get like the gist, I guess. Like, him being there, like, kind of helps him evolve as a character and it makes it more interesting. All I'm saying is the way they went about it, I don't think that it necessitated Thorfinn being like a brat all the time. And I think that there could have been more moments that like Kyle was talking about of like, humanizing him, showing him having a moment of clarity. Because I think that that is what's going to resonate more with me. And I'm seeing Thorfinn develop and make progress instead of just this like one note. I'm always angry. Let me fight Askeladd. Oh, I lost. Back to my one note angry. Fight Askeladd again. Oh, I lost. I'm angry again, and so forth. So I just would have liked to see more shape to like his character line. It was just a lot of the same, and he always had the same reaction. And there was a couple key moments where like I think Thorfinn like got lost like with the group, and he got picked up by some villagers, and like he was like he like got to interact with some people that weren't murderers for a bit, so that was chill. But I think a couple more moments like that would have done him some good, and that kind of picked it up towards the end. So I wouldn't say like this is a big problem for me, but when he was on screen being one note, I was just like, yeah, I don't think they needed to do this because I don't like watching it.
Um, I actually really like the decision that he doesn't end up killing Askeladd. I thought that's like a great point of interest for his character development because he's acting so entitled the entire first season or like this first arc. And the fact that he learns like you're not always going to get what you want, no matter how many times you say Askeladd is mine, I'm going to duel this man. He killed my father, and now I'm going to kill him. You're not going to get that just because you say that. And I thought that was a really good like point of interest and something to develop on for the future.
Yeah, and also it kind of
Yeah,
like fits like because I would say like the this show like at the end of the day is about violence and peace because like I think that like that kind of shit was defined like really early on in the show with like Thor's when you find out about what Thor's viewpoint is on like violence, um, and on what makes a true warrior, and that a true warrior doesn't need a sword, um, and like how enlightened and woke he is about that kind of shit. Um, and so like I think that the like looking at the like entire rest of the show, kind of like through that perspective about like violence and peace, where it's like it's it's a good like the setting and the premise of the show is like a good way to kind of like it's a great premise to examine violence because it's like this is like a much simpler world where like violence like it like just like might makes right, like if you are like strong enough to like just fucking raid a village and like take all of their wealth, then like you there's nothing stopping you, you just do it, like there's like no consequences, like you just do it. um and so like it's like such a good setting to kind of like examine like violence, peace, that kind of like dichotomy and stuff. And I mean, it's great for like you said for Thor's development to like not actually end up killing Askeladd because he now has to like deal with like okay, like that was my life like up until this point. Like now what? Like what do I do? And I mean like I've read a little bit more in the manga, so I like kind of like know where he goes from here. But yeah, I mean it's like pretty obvious that like he's going to change radically as a character as a result of this, and that's why they ended the season here. I mean, I think it was a great spot to end the season. Basically the end of like this whole war arc, this whole like Askeladd revenge arc for Thorfinn.
yeah. Also, another character I really enjoyed throughout the show. I think this show does a good job. There's obviously there's Thorfinn is a really main character, but there's so many main characters kind of in this show. It's tough to for me to say Askeladd's a side character, right? I don't think
Yeah, I
he
mean,
is. I think he's a main character at least in the first season. Um And I really enjoyed his character too, right? Because you start off by seeing this guy who like is supposedly like some sort of like like killer for assassin for hire, right? That like someone like shows up to his door and he goes, "I'll pay you X amount of dollars for you to go kill this person," and like that's how you get introduced to Askeladd. And slowly you start realizing like Askeladd has things that he like cares about and wants to protect, right? Like specifically whales. Like his mother's connection to whales is something that like he's really proud of and like wants to preserve, and so he has this like ulterior motive to like wanting to join the king of Denmark and wanting to join the prince of Denmark and trying to like reform the system from the inside to protect whales. And one thing like I really enjoyed, it's like a small thing that I noticed, was how Askeladd introduces himself to different characters. When he introduces himself to like someone who's like in the Danish army, he doesn't say I'm the son of Lydia. He says like I'm the son of like my father, right? Who's like a Dane, I suppose. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says he's
And
the son of Olaf.
yeah, yeah. And when he introduces himself to like all those people in Wales, he says I'm the son of Lydia.
Yeah.
Like like he takes pride in that, and like he like shows like this is like what my true nature is. And you can even notice when he knows how to speak all those languages. Like all of his mercenaries are like, how the fuck does our leader know how to speak like all these languages, like whatever area we show up in? And it's
Yeah.
because like your boy like was raised by two different like parents of like two different origins, right?
Yeah.
And so he like has that multicultural perspective. So I enjoyed learning a lot about like how Askeladd evolved and like kind of goes from just like a simple mercenary for hire to like somebody who has like ulterior motives and like is trying to serve some sort of greater good.
I really like how subtly they like introduce these things. So like it starts off like you meet Askeladd. He mentions like I think in his duel with Tors. Tors says, "Oh, he's the son of who and who, some Danish guy." And Askeladd introduced himself by saying like he's the ancestor of Artorius. And like when I first heard that, I was like, okay, Artorius. That's not a very like that doesn't sound very Danish or Scandinavian. And then he's got his armor, and his armor looks very like he's got like the chest piece that's got like the outline of like the pecs and the abs, and that was like, okay, that doesn't look very Danish at all. Like that looks like Roman almost. And then he like slowly talks. He's like talking to like on their way to Wales or whatever. He's talking to Torfin, and Torfin's like he's like, oh, did you guys ever hear about the Roman Empire or something like that? And it's like all these like subtle things, and then he gets to Wales, and you see this guy that looks like legitimately just like a straight up Roman general in Wales, and you like learn about his ancestry and all this really cool stuff about the Celts and the Britons and everything. And it all culminates in the coolest moment like I've seen in a while, where he's like, I think maybe it's right before he kills the king or right after he kills the king. He just says this like, "My name's not Askeladd. The name my mother gave it to me was whatever." That's like some three like first
Yeah, like
middle
some
last.
really badass royal sounding
It's
name.
like a
Yeah.
really Roman sounding name, and it's like, oh my god, this is the coolest shit ever. Like his ancestry and like his backstory was done so well in this whole thing, and like how subtly it was introduced, but like how like just very smooth it was. How I thought it was excellent. It was amazing.
Yeah, Askeladd's definitely my easily favorite character in the show. His backstory, like when he like killed like his dad and then like ruled over like his Wales, I think, right? And then he's just so cool in every scene. He always knew what to do. He even knew when like his army was gonna revolt. He's like, okay, I knew this was coming. Bye bye.
Yeah,
And
I
he,
thought
just the way he went out too. Like he did it for the greater good, which was like really cool. Because like I don't know what like catalyzed that in him because it didn't really seem like something that he would be motivated to. But I guess he just realized that there was nothing left. And just like one last thing, kind of about Askeladd, but then also more generally, I really like the motivators for the people in the show because you see people like Thorfinn, Askeladd, and even Canute, and they kind of like have these like forces, usually like a father, the king, like pressuring them into a mold, and then they kind of resist for a really long time, and then something like shocks them. So for like Thorfinn, it's gonna be Askeladd dying. I'm just gonna assume that he changes. For Canute, it was like just that his like caretaker dying, and then his whole life like his dad was like, oh, like you're a royal, and he's like, you're a wimp, and he looks like a girl, and like all this stuff, and there's all this like pressure, for all these people, and then Askeladd as well, to be a certain way, and then something dramatic kind of changes for them. Uh, sorry, this is kind of like rambly, but I just really liked how they were like catalyzed to change. I thought it was like because there was a lot of resistance along the way. I know this is really general, but I just saw that in a lot of pockets, and I think with Askeladd that kind of happened at the end as well.
Yeah, I like the word you use, pressure, because like for those three characters you mentioned, like I can definitely see the pressure. Like the pressure for the prince was him. It was him being told, "Oh, you're wimpy, you're quiet, you need to assert yourself," stuff like that. And it's just building and building up until he has this existential crisis after his caretaker dies, and he like finally realizes what he has to do and what kind of purpose he has in life. For Torfin, it's like the pressure of him like constantly losing to Askeladd, and it's building up and building up. And finally, you have the final duel after the mushroom eating guy dies. I can't remember his name. And he just Askeladd absolutely just wipes the floor with him and tells him like, you got to stop being such an angry little motherfucker. You got to like find your purpose in life. And he gets so sad. He's just wandering the streets and the pressure's building. And he finally gets like he sees Askeladd on the door and just dead on the ground. He just breaks down. And then for who's the last character you mentioned? It's Canute. Oh, Askeladd. It's like the breaking point is him learning about whales. And he's like, okay, well, my goal was to help Canute, and the only way I can do that at this point is to literally just give my life to help Canute and save whales at the same time. Because yeah, the king tried to make the choice either save Canute or save whales, and he figured out a way to do both, but he had to give his life in the
Yeah.
process.
Thank you for
One
paraphrasing my thoughts into your much better worded thoughts.
dude, one funny thing I noticed was like throughout Askeladd's journey with like his like mercenaries, he's like they constantly keep referring to him and being like he's run out of luck. He's like out of luck
Yeah.
now. Like this is a very unlucky guy. But like his biggest gambit is on Canute, right? That like Canute is just gonna come out of nowhere and like save him. And then you see that epic battle with like Thorkel and like you see Thorfinn like coming in like they're trying their best. And then like Canoe comes out of nowhere, and he's like all of a sudden like he goes to 180. He goes from this like really passive like subordinate dude to like this really dominant. He's like, I'm gonna lead us to victory. Like you need to join my side. Like I am a true warrior. And literally everybody on that field, like including Thorkel, is like, okay, I respect it. I'm gonna join you. And
Yeah.
like that was like the most luckiest thing in the world, right? For that to happen to him and like save his life. I just thought it was really funny that like they kept alluding to like him running out of luck and like him playing the long con and like getting it to go in his favor.
I really
Yeah.
liked uh I kind of like Canute's journey, but I also it was kind of weird. Like I think I would have preferred a more gradual way of
Yeah, it
doing
was
it
like a
instead of just
complete 180. It was
the
very
sudden
weird.
existential crisis. Like I did like the existential crisis. I thought it was interesting, but like for me, I think I've talked about this with maybe a boss or something. But when Canute first shows up and he's like in anime, like I was just thinking like anime tropes, like you have a new character that shows up, you can't see his face. This guy's in a full red cloak. He's got the coolest motherfucking helmet you've ever seen in your whole goddamn life. He doesn't say a word. All he does is pray and like you can't see his face. The entire time I'm thinking like Torkel's gonna like raid his village or raid the army that's sieging him, and this guy's gonna pop off and just kill everybody. Turns out the entire time he's like the biggest wimp of all time, and then you have the sudden existential crisis. I don't know. I thought it was kind of an interesting like uh subversion of like the typical anime trope of the quiet badass, but I thought it was kind of interesting how they chose to do the existential crisis kind of idea, I guess.
One of my
Yeah,
like
more
favorite.
on like
But wait, one
oh
really quick thing, Kyle. Just my
yeah,
favorite scene with Canute was like when they showed up on the boat towards the end of the season, and like Canute like died. They like thought he got shot, and then they like revealed that it was just like somebody standing in for him, and then he was like. It revealed it was a girl, and he's like, "Dude, why'd you have to use a girl?" And it's like he's the only one that resembled your features. That was so funny.
Everyone was like, "Oh, I knew he was a girl the whole
I
time."
just thought that
yeah.
that was one of my favorite scenes. Cause like, bro, come on,
Yeah, that was
dude.
pretty funny. Yeah. And that was like after Canute grew a pair, so it's like especially funny. But yeah, so like I actually thought like Canute like existential crisis, like his enlightenment like was actually like really interesting. Especially since like I don't know if you guys remember, but like the whole like where that the entire thing like came from is from like he was like kind of like talking to the priest
Mhm.
after Ragnar, like his like kind of like his like father figure, who like was like he actually cared about him, unlike his dad. Like he died and shit. Um, and the priest was like, talking to him, and it was like a very like, all hope is lost kind of situation. And the priest like says, kind of like gets Canute thinking about the idea that um, that like like okay, so before this, like the priest had kind of been talking to all of the Vikings, like teaching them about like love. Like he's basically like, oh, like love is like the thing that like that's like that's what Christians are like all about, like divine love and like kind of embodying that love like in this world. And like that's like kind of like what we like are always striving for, but like can never reach. And so like all of like the Vikings are like they're not Christian, like they all like follow like the Norse gods and shit. And they're basically like spend their days like just like murdering Christians all the time. So they're kind of like, oh, like fucking this guy. And he's also like a huge drunk. So it's like, he's kind of a joke. But as like more goes on, the Vikings are kind of like, oh, like is this love? Is this love? Like what's the deal with like the whole like love thing you're talking about? And so like Canute kind of like he gets like thinking because of like what the priest is saying. And he basically says that like, oh, like sin is like the opposite of love because sin is like the ultimate evil, love is like the ultimate good. And like sin comes from desires and like wanting things and like acting on our desires and like using our free will to like kind of like in, indulge in like these desires that are bad. And so like that means that like and so Canute comes to the conclusion that like, oh, like well if sin comes from like desire and agency and like action, then love must be like inaction. It must be basically just like completely letting go of all of your desires and just like offering yourself up to the world and basically like not doing anything. And so he says, oh, then like love is death. And the priest is like, you got it, like death is love. Like this dead guy, he is love. Like you are not love. Like you cannot love like because you're alive and you have like your own desires and you act and shit like that. And so like Canute is like, oh, so like what the fuck? Like does that mean that like we like humans who have free will and like act on our desires, are we incapable of like having love? Like are we incapable of achieving like what God has defined to be good? Um so like he's like, what the fuck? Like does that mean that like we are literally just made to suffer? Like did God put us on this world just to test us? And it's like at that moment where Canute is like, dude, like fuck God. Like if this worldview that like that love is good and that death is like the only way that we can achieve that is true, I'm just going to completely reject that, and I'm going to create like my own good on this world. Like I'm going to create like heaven on earth. And that's like where like the 180 comes from, where he's just like like, his entire life he's basically been Christian and been like praying to God, and now he's basically like, nah, like fuck you God, like I'm just gonna like make heaven on earth because like that's where like I can actually like do shit. um and it's pretty cool. Like I really like that. And the reason that like Canute becomes like a badass like after that is because like you can't like make anything that's good. Like you can't like you can't do that without having the ability to defend it. Like he has to be able to have like the might in order to like stake a claim on Earth and say, all right, like this is like I'm going to like make good and I'm going to defend it. And I think that kind of like connects to like what like Thor's was saying about like you know uh, a true warrior doesn't need a sword. It's like you don't necessarily need to like have violence, but you need to like be threatening enough that people won't fuck with you, so that you never even have to use your sword to begin with. So I actually really liked Canute's like 180 because I think it makes sense, and
Yeah,
it's
I
interesting to think about.
I also agree with Kyle. Like, so right after I watched like Canute's 180, I actually totally disagreed. I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why is the priest trying to tell him that death is love? And like, we have to remember that we have to think about love. It's the Christian way of love, right? Christian love is different from like me loving somebody or like a father loving a child. Christian love is like not committing sin. Um, and so like, why is this guy like telling Canute like death is love? Like that makes no sense. I thought like Canute's supposed to be like against violence and like I thought like we're not trying. He's like going to be the one character that's not going for violence. But because of that transition from like being a nihilist to like being like an optimistic nihilist or like being an existentialist, like that philosophical shift in his mind is like what catalyzes his actions in the future. He specifically says like I will choose the battles that create the good of this world, right? So he's like so he like embraces this idea of death. So he still captures what the priest is saying about like death being the absence of sin, but he says I will use death and like use it as a leeway to get into good within this world, so that death doesn't like I can use death to not just be the absence of sin, but I can use death to be creating of good within this society. Um, and so I think I really enjoy that. Like honestly, that transition was probably my most like favorite, one of the most like favorite things I enjoyed about that anime. I haven't seen a lot of anime that go with that philosophical and like trying to explore somebody's mentality, but that did it for me. I loved it.
Yeah, I'd agree. It was like a really, really cool scene, and Kyle, you honestly explained it better to me now than when I watched the show. And then Abbas, that was also insightful as well, and it actually makes a lot more sense to me now.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not
I
afraid
like
to
when
admit
I like
that.
first read the manga, like I kind of like didn't really get it, but like rewatching it, like it came a lot more clear, especially because like knowing like what Canute would turn into, like after like he had that moment, so it kind of was like, okay, well, like if 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 Canute is here, like afterwards, and like this is like kind of like what he's going through now, like how exactly does he get there? But I think that like that's kind of like what the show is trying to convey. And I think it's like kind of cool that like it's not like super obvious like at first, but it and because it's like kind of like just as surprising to you as it is to like the other characters. But it like I think it does like hold up like on like re-examining it because you're like it makes sense both for like his character and also like contextually with like the rest of the themes of the show. I especially think it's interesting how like after that I think the next time that Thorkel, oh yeah, because like right after that, he like goes and basically convinces Thorkel to like join forces with him and Askeladd, and like basically makes like he's like, all right, like now these are my followers, like we're gonna go into like I don't remember what place it was, like basically where like where all of the Danes were in England, and we're gonna go like fuck it up together, um, and stake our claim for like my inheritance, and so like, but the way that he convinces like Thorkel is like first of all just like by being like just like super convinced and like basically like exuding this aura of confidence that like you know what like if you follow me like you're gonna like good things will come to you because like I'm going to become king of Denmark and England. And so but also like Thorkel specifically says like I don't remember if he says it to another character or if it just like kind of like shows him thinking it, but he says something about like Canute's eyes look just like Thor's eyes on the night that Thor's left. On the night that Thor's like took his wife and child and like left the Yam Vikings. And that was like after like Thor's reached his enlightenment on kind of like on giving up, making his life being about murdering people and like giving up violence basically and choosing to just like defend his peace um in like the ways that he can. And so I think like it's interesting to kind of like think about how Canute like he is enlightened in the same way in that like Thorkel kind of like sees him as having achieved that enlightenment. It's just I think that the main difference between them is like the scope. Like Thor's, he's basically just like, all right, like it's just me and my family. Like he what triggered that enlightenment for him is like that he just wants to protect his family and he doesn't want to like put himself at risk to like lose his family, and he also like just thinks it's like wrong to like kill all these other people because they can have families and shit. But like when Canute has this realization and he gets this enlightenment, it's like he says like I'm going to make like a kingdom that will be like the good that like God will not provide us, like that will be the good that like is promised in the next life. I'm going to make that here in this world. So I think it's like the main difference between like their enlightenments is like the scope and like the scale. Like for Thor, it's just his family, but for Canute, it's like he wants to make an entire kingdom where it's like where he's protecting it, and he's protecting like the peace within it, and it may be with the threat of violence, but it's still peaceful, and he's trying to bring peace to as many people as possible. And so I think it'll be interesting to see down the road how that works out for him. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean
like Canute's though. Canute's cool.
at the same time, I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think this is like really creating an opportunity for Canute to like be like, yeah, like, I'm creating like the ultimate good, but it could be like a self-fulfilling prophecy where like in the attempt of creating the ultimate good, he ends up doing just what every other king in the past has done, and like, destroying civilizations, destroying like other kingdoms, like, hurting innocent people to help achieve his own ideal of like this is what the ultimate good is. And so I think, that element of mystery like is still there.
Uh, kind
So
of going off that, they always talk about whether it be Armageddon or Ragnarok or the coming of Artorias, and they like keep harping on the coming of Artorias, and I think that Canute's journey might like actually. I mean, I haven't read any of the manga, but his journey might like mirror the coming of Artorias, where maybe he comes to the land, maybe they go to Vinland and he kills everybody to like make his own great area, make his own great society, his great kingdom. But they keep saying, okay, Artorias is going to come over and kill all the heathens or whatever. Maybe that's how Kunu's journey is going. I thought that was a interesting point.
One interesting aspect of the show, or at least like one of the funniest, but also like most violent parts of the show to me was like just like the Viking like band. And like kind of like the middle of the show, like you spend a long time with them, kind of just like going through the snow, like running away from Thorkel. And it was probably the worst part of the show, just because it was like pretty boring. Like it was like, oh, we're gonna keep running this town, and we're just gonna keep on going. And it was like dragged on for like 6 episodes or something. And yeah, that was kind of like a lull for me. But like the Vikings as a whole throughout the whole show, like everywhere they go, they got like Vikings like spot on, like what I imagine Vikings to be. Like if they weren't murdering everybody, even when they went to like inns or like pubs or whatever, like townskeepers were like, dude, they're buying all of our food. We're gonna have no more food left.
Yeah,
Like we're
Yeah.
fucked. And
yeah,
then they even like characterized some of them pretty well, and like the like insurrection like within I think was done in like a pretty like creative way as well. Like one guy was just like, "Yo, if we do this, like everybody's down, trust me." And then everybody was down, and it just kind of showed like how fragile and like violent and like unstable they are as like an actual like group. But they're really really good at killing people, and that's what I think of when I think of Vikings, and I think they nailed it.
yeah. I remember like one like thing that sticks out to me is I like stopped on episode 12 after no, yeah, 12, and I didn't watch for like maybe like a 3-day period. But I talked to a boss a few times, and a boss told me that his favorite character was Askeladd, and I remember thinking like, okay, Askeladd kind of killed. At that point in my time, I was like, okay, Askeladd kind of killed Thor's. Like, why he must have like a really good arc coming up. Like, he must be really cool. Like, I was like, okay, Askeladd's a really interesting character, but also he's a terrible person because he killed Thor's. And I found myself like 3 episodes after I continued watching, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, Askeladd's a really good character, and I really like Askeladd. And then like the next episode, he like legitimately just murders an entire town because he needs their food. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like this character is a very, very complex character where like 1 second you're like, okay, this is like my favorite character in the show, and then the next episode he murders an entire town. And for me at least, I wasn't like, okay, well he murdered an entire town, and now I hate him. I was like, well I still kind of like him, but he did just murder that entire town. I don't know, the complexity of the characters while also being like part of these murdering, raping Vikings was cool. Um, and another thing I liked is I don't know if you guys have like heard about this or I don't know noticed it at all, but kind of recently in modern media, the Vikings have been getting very good publicity. Kind of like pirates, where pirates in real life weren't very nice people. I mean, they obviously were, but some were nice, I'm sure. They raped and pillaged, you know. That's not very
Yeah.
good. And recently, like shows like Vikings definitely shows some violence, of course, but shows like Vikings and like Assassin's Creed Valhalla is coming out, and apparently the Vikings are painted pretty well in that, and like other shows and depictions of them in recent media at least have kind of like doled down how terrible of people they were and like how much damage they did. And I was kind of thinking like as I came into Vinland Saga, like, all right, I hope they like do a good depiction of like actually how fucked up the Vikings were. And they did a pretty good depiction of how fucking messed up. Like they killed everybody and they didn't shy away from that, which I really like.
On a side note,
Yeah.
there's a show on Netflix called The Last Kingdom, which is like about basically it's like very very similar to like Vinland Saga in terms of like England versus like the Vikings, and they basically show the Vikings as like a bunch of murderers. If you're interested in seeing more murderous Vikings, there's like a
Yeah.
couple of them that are like a little humanized. Like it's kind of based on the tribe, but that's just like a side note in case you wanted
Yeah.
to watch
I
something.
think the biggest offender, I mean, obviously the game hasn't come out yet, so I can't say for sure. But based off the trailers for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it seems like they're making the Vikings be the good. You're playing as the Vikings, of course, and they're making England be the big bad guys and the Vikings being the good guys. Where
Vikings are hot right now. All I
yeah,
can say.
Vikings are
I think
very
it's because
hot
of
right
Game of Thrones.
now. What?
Yeah, I could see it.
I think it's
See a
because of
little
Game
bit.
of Thrones.
Game
Like,
of Thrones, yeah. Also,
yeah,
they're
just
just
because,
very
like,
cool.
yeah, Vikings are cool.
Like, look, did
Yeah,
you see, like how cool the Yams Vikings look in this show? Like the
yeah,
white cloaks with the cool ass helmets. They're
Yeah.
so cool.
yeah. And they all just have like their like their halberds or whatever. And whenever they're like in a scene, they're all like, and
Yeah.
like I really like at like it's really early on in the show where like the Yams Vikings are like juxtaposed with like Askeladd's crew, and
Yeah.
Askeladd's crew is just like trifling and like partying and like
Mhm.
getting really wasted and fucking with this Christian dude. Um, and like the Yams Vikings are all just like stoic as fuck, just like standing there.
Yeah.
And it was just like really like nice like characterization for like Askeladd and his crew. And like I'm definitely like the Yams Vikings look cool, but I'm definitely glad that we got to hang out with like Askeladd's crew over the
Oh yeah,
course of the
for
show
sure.
because they're definitely way more fun.
Kind of going off the Yams Vikings, I was kind of feeling like I wanted Torfin to be more involved with the leader of the Yams Vikings. I can't remember his name, but
Oh yeah, that
I
douchebag.
kind of wanted like a plot where he finds out like that's the guy that gave the order to kill your dad. And they never did that, which I was kind of disappointed with. Even though at the very end, Canute kind of puts him in his place, where he's like, "Let me kill this guy for you, Canute." Like, and Canute's like, "Back the fuck up, mother. Like, this is my job. Please leave me alone, or whatever."
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about, or anything else you
We could talk
guys?
about the animation, which is probably my biggest gripe with the show. There was a
Yeah,
lot of CGI.
There's a lot of
yeah,
CG. Yeah.
yeah.
I would say like I actually think that like most of like the main like story was like animated well, but like just like all of the background shit was CG like without any exception, you know?
Yeah,
Um
even some of the main stuff, like some of the fight scenes, I noticed where they tried to like look, they tried to make it look like the camera was panning down, and it looked really bad. Like I noticed one fight scene with I think it was Torkel's head, and it looked very bad because it was like the back of his head, but it looked very like somebody just made it in Blender in 30 minutes.
Yeah. And there was like some cinematic shots as well when they're like transitioning between scenes where it's CG, and I'm like, dude, like I know you're trying to like have like a surreal like moment capturing like the beauty of like, the English Isles or whatever, but I'm just the only thing I'm thinking about right now is how bad the CG looks like. And
yeah.
whatever you were trying to show me, it did not work.
Yeah. Also, I think it was the scene with also with Torkel when he takes the big log or the tree trunk and smashes the boats. I think that scene in particular. I think it was that scene. There was one battle scene. I'm pretty sure it was that one that just had just like I could not focus because of how bad the CG was.
The boats were pretty much without exception really ugly to look at.
Yeah.
Like there's one part in particular, like in the episode where they're like going there they just they like it's kind of like a side story where they like raid the French like people because they're like, oh shit, like they weren't calling off the war, like there's like a ceasefire with England, so like we gotta get food to eat and like loot and shit. So we'll go to like we'll go to France and like fuck with them. And like on their way out, like they're like going down like this river, and oh my god, like it looked so bad. Like I cannot believe that like it got like a bit that got the thumbs up to like put in the show. Like I seriously think that that was probably like a test. Like they were like doing that like, oh, we'll fix this later, and they just like ran out of time or something. It looked really bad. There was definitely a lot of like bad CG, but I don't know. Like I like I wouldn't say that this like show like looks like it doesn't look, it's not always bad. Like there are like some moments that look legitimately really good. Like and I think that like all of the character designs are really good in this show.
Yes.
And like they like definitely like compared to the manga, they like captured a lot of it. Like a lot of like the facial expressions like really hold up. Um also they do like some like I think like particularly like this show like does like the moments really good. Like
Mm.
there are like specific moments from the manga that are like really memorable. Like the one where like really early on into the show, like where like uh fucking Askeladd is like it's the when they're raiding the French people. And like they literally like pick up their boats and are like running down the hill with their boats, and Askeladd is like at the front, like with his like sword sticking out, and it's just like the most badass shit of all time. Like that was really good. And then also like the horse punch was like just like so fucking sick. Like when Thorfinn is
Oh yeah.
going in to like fight Thorkel, and like he's like on the horse and like he's just charging at him like on the horse, and Thorkel just fucking uppercuts the horse, and the horse is like fucking out of commission. It's like Jesus Christ, you just fucking kill the horse. Like what the fuck? Like with your fist. Oh my god, yeah, like that was crazy, and it was really done well in the
Honestly, I
anime.
think that moment cemented Torkel as my favorite character. He's so cool.
Torkel is
Torkel and
cool.
Tors are my favorite character for sure. We didn't get. I wanted to see more of Thor's in like the battlefield. Like the opening scene was really cool with him, and like the scene where he beats up everybody but doesn't kill anybody. He goes like full
Yeah,
Batman on them. It was really cool.
yeah,
And I
and he's
wanted
like
to
a
see
warrior
more of
doesn't need a sword.
him.
Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
didn't even need my sword to fucking solo an entire ship full of Vikings. Like
yeah.
Jesus Christ,
Also,
boy.
I liked how they were talking about that at one point. They were like, "Oh yeah, only the veterans know about this one guy that we fought a long time ago, where he literally beat up everybody on the ship but didn't kill anybody." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." They're like, you can see how like the story spread to the camp.
Yeah, because like if like that was like 10 years ago, so
Yeah,
like definitely like most of the people are probably new.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty sick.
I thought music wasn't anything special. Like the OPs were all right. I didn't go back and
I,
listen.
I actually really like the first one.
I
Is
like
that
the
like a
Like
first one
metal
kind of because it
song?
just switches up really
it
quickly.
was so badass. Like, and it's like, and it makes sense because like it was like metal and shit, and like Scandinavia is where metal comes from. I'm pretty sure. So I wonder if they were
Scandinavians
thinking
do
about
love
that.
their metal.
Yeah, like it was pretty sick. It was pretty badass. Definitely the most badass opening I've heard in a while. Oh yeah, something I wanted to bring up. The the manga actually like presents the beginning differently. So in the manga, we kind of get like a flash forward. I think it's like the first two chapters are like Thorfinn, like after he's already like with Askeladd and shit. It's like I think it's like I'm pretty sure it's just the fight against the French, like where we get like the boats down the hill, and like Thorfinn like doing his like he cuts the head off of like some general guy or something like that. And he does some cool shit. And like we get that, and then we get a flashback and see like the story with like when he's like a kid and like how Thor's died and shit. And so I think it's like I think it's kind of better how they did it in the manga because the way that it seems in the anime, because we get like that period like we find like Thor's dies, um Thorfinn, like as a kid, like challenges Askeladd like once or twice or something. He gets like obviously wrecked because he's like 6. Um, and then we cut like 10 years later when like he's doing that like military feat so that he can like Askeladd says like cut off a guy with a cool helmet. He must be like a leader or something. Bring me his head and then we'll duel, and then that's what happens. I think the way that it's presented in anime, it makes it seem like he fought him a couple times as a kid, and now this is like the first time that like he's fighting him like as like an adult, or like as an older guy. Whereas like the way that it's presented in the manga, where it's like a flash forward and then we flash back, it's almost like it kind of seems like it's almost like this is an everyday life kind of thing. Like every time they do a battle, Thorfinn does something badass, he gets to fight Askeladd, and it makes it seem like he's been fighting him like all the time. Like whenever he gets the chance, he's like, all right, now we're gonna fight. And I think it makes him seem more intimidating. And it was just like I don't know, like when I watched the anime, it seemed like, oh, this is like the first time he's fought him since he's a kid, which is definitely not the impression I got from the manga. So I'm curious, like if you guys got the same impression, like if you
Yeah,
also thought that was the first time that he had dueled him since he was a kid, or not.
I kind of got that impression. Yeah, I think so.
Y-
I mean, I'd
Yeah,
have to like go back and watch it because I don't
and
remember exactly what they said.
Honestly, I don't think I really thought too much of it, but the way you're presenting it like does seem better because it seems like that's the most important fight, or at least it did seem at the moment.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, oh, this is just like a fight. Like it's also like that fight, like the against the French, is like purposely disconnected from the rest of the plot so that you could just get in. You get hooked by like seeing Thorkel like do some cool Viking ninja shit, and then we're like, all right, now we're gonna get the backstory. How did he get here? Why does he want to kill his leader? And then we're like, oh, so like he's been doing this for a long time. Like I don't know. It just makes him seem more intimidating. It makes him seem like a more impressive member of the crew, which I like for Thorfinn.
I liked
But kind of a
kind of
nitpick.
later on after that, after he's dueled him a couple times. It just like I saw a meme on this where it was pretty funny. It was basically anytime uh Askeladd needs Thorfinn to do something, he gives him the objective and he goes, I don't really want to do that. But I'll do you after. And he goes, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that Askeladd is just using Thorfinn. Like he's
Yeah.
like literally like he is a tool. But like at the same time, there are like some moments where you kind of get the sense like, oh, like he actually does care. But like those moments are not that often. He
He cares
definitely
about
is
his
more.
development. I don't know if he cares about him as a person. Like
Yeah,
he wants Thorfinn to grow into a strong person. I don't think he really cares about his feelings too much though.
Yeah, it's
and I think it's mostly
weird.
because he just respects Thor's. You know, like
Yeah,
he
exactly.
when he fought against Thor's, he like learned a lot about him, and he's like, this guy's a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, their dynamic is very strange. Like it's really hard to pin down whether or not Askeladd, like actually to what extent he cared about Thorfinn, and we'll never know.
Like I'd definitely put him in the category of a father figure, but it's almost like an abusive father figure, but also
Yeah,
like
it's like the toughest possible love.
yeah, exactly.
All right. We're coming close to an hour, so unless anybody else had something fast they wanted to talk about, we could just sum it up.
I guess just generally, I really liked the fact that it's a very historical anime, and I want to find more historical animes, and I thought that was really interesting and a great setting. I don't know, I'd never seen one before like this, and really piqued my interest because I'm like a history. So yeah, I thought that was
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, definitely like kind of like grounds everything.
yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
it made like, because like all this like even though like obviously the main story is not based on a true story or anything, the fact
Yeah,
that it's like in like a setting like where it's like, oh, this is like a historical setting, like these are like English people, like we know like that they're a real culture and shit, and like this is
yeah,
an actual war that happened. It kind of like and and the fact that like all of the horrible violence that's happening, like that was just life back then. Like
yeah,
that kind of shit like really like makes it so that like the points that the show is bringing up about violence like hit that much harder, and are that much more effective because of it, and I
yeah.
like it.
I like it's like you said, it's grounded, but also you have moments where it's like an anime where like somebody literally uppercuts a horse into the fucking stratosphere. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not like he doesn't
definitely.
like shout the name of a move and like do it, but like I
Yeah,
don't
he
know.
just fucking does it. Yeah, it walks that line very well, I think.
Yeah,
The
I think so.
line between like being grounded and like
An anime.
it just yeah, and just like anime badass ninja shit. Yeah, I like it.
All right. So I guess to summarize, like my opinion on Vinland Saga, there's a lot of intrigue there for me, like about like the land of Finland, as well as like what you guys were just talking about, like just the setting, the concept, like Vikings and anime. Like it's just such a cool idea, and it's like just a lot of fun to watch most of the time. Except for like there was like like I said like there's that lull like for 5 or 6 episodes I thought was really boring where there was chasing around. Uh, Thorkel was just chasing around the Vikings. I thought that was kind of boring. Um, the characters like Askeladd is so badass. Like Thorkel is so funny. Like I'm rooting for Thorfinn, but he's not quite meeting my expectations so far. And I'm like interested to see like when he goes back to like his home and like what happens. Like with Canute, is he going to become the king of Denmark? After like Homeboy is dead, like what political process is going to go through? There's just like actually so many things to like unfold. Like the intrigue for me, like seeing season 2 or reading the manga is actually very high because there's a lot of things to like that need to be further developed. So even though I haven't seen the rest or read the manga, like Kyle, I think like when you describe this as a prologue, like just seeing what I've seen, I could say that that's probably very accurate, just because there's so much shit that was built up. And saying that the fight scenes are good, some of the CG is like so shitty, and uh, that's like the big downside, I guess, the CG and then Thorfinn as well. I don't know. Is there anything else that really, really bugged me? No, I would say that's about it. Like, there's only a couple downsides, but overall, the show is really, really good. Like, it's so fun to watch, and like the Vikings are so badass. They're always just fucking shit up, and they're always fighting people. It's like such a good idea to make a Viking show because they're always gonna be killing people. Not that like I only want to watch people die, but like it's exciting. So I'd probably give it like a low 8. Like it's pretty solid. There's a couple things that are hindrances. CG, I think the MC needs work, but I'm really really looking forward to see like where they take like these like 4 or 5 different storylines that need to unpack. And there's just so much unknown. Like I really can't give it a higher rating than that just because this really scratched the surface of what they could do, but I'm excited to see how they like take what they build up and then like really develop